Hi everybody. Hi Kanupriya. Okay, I'm gonna wave at you. Hi Astha. Hi Kashish. Hello everybody. Thank you so much for joining today's live. Hi. Hi Zainab. Hi Shraddha. Hello, Jia. Okay, guys, so I'm gonna introduce myself before we begin today's live. So I am Ekta, and I'm deputy editor with PopExo. So today we are going to, in today's live, we are going to discuss about how to ace a job interview. So, guys, let me ask you this question: what is your primary goal when you go for a job interview? Of course, it is to get hired and to prove to your hiring manager that you are the right person for the job above all other candidates. But let's admit it, interviews can get intimidating whether you are fresh out of college or you're already working but you're looking for a transition to a new company. So to help you out, we are doing this live today with our founder and CEO Priyanka Gill. She is going to tell you all about how to ace a job interview, how to avoid making slip ups, and how to go about your job interviews. So and also, guys, you are going to hear all of this from a boss's perspective. So stay tuned, and also you can ask a lot of questions. She is going to answer them all of them. So without any further delay, I'm going to add her now to this live.
Okay, she's gonna be here anytime now. Hi, PG.
Hey, hi.
How are you, PG?
Good. How you doing?
I'm good. You're looking all bright and you're glowing. Okay, PG. So I was just sorry, I didn't get you. I didn't hear that. I mean,
It's all my glam makeup.
oh wow, amazing. I'm also wearing my glam makeup, but I think my lighting is a little bit dull and it's not showing properly. Okay, PG. So I was just giving a little bit of introduction about today's live to our viewers. I was telling them that we are going to discuss how to ace a job interview, the do's and don'ts of a job interview, things you should avoid saying during an interview, and words, phrases that can make you sound really smart during an interview. So, PG, shall we begin?
Sure.
Okay. So, for my first question to you is that how should you prepare for an interview? Is it okay? Is reviewing the website of the company enough, before you go in for an interview?
Yeah. So, hi guys. It's good to be here. It's the first of April's, but it's not really an April's Fool thing. And
Of course.
over the course of these kind of 7 odd years, I must have taken around hundreds of interviews, right? And you begin to get a sense of a pattern of what works, what doesn't work. So, I think today we're going to talk about uh, how to actually prepare for the interview, which is very important, and uh, how the lack of preparation actually shows up, right? So
Yeah.
it depends on the kind of job that you're applying for, but it's extremely important to do all the research that you can on the company, on the person who's interviewing you, and on kind of the competitors who are kind of around the company as well, right? So say you're coming into interview for a company like PopExo. So obviously PopExo has a very social media footprint. We have a website, we have so many kind of handles on Instagram, on YouTube, and of course we are on LinkedIn as well. And then you will obviously know who you're interviewing with as well. So that person will also have a LinkedIn. If she's on the content team, she would have written a lot of articles. So you'll find her on the PopExo website. So doing all the homework and really figuring out how is the company positioning itself, that's important, right? So you go to Google, you do a search, you go to the news tab on Google, see what is the latest kind of articles about the company. So knowing as much as you can about the company is kind of, there's no substitute for that, right? So that you have to know.
Really important, yeah.
Yeah, so do your prep. And then of course for the role, what kind of role is it? Is it a new role? Are there other people who are already in this role? Can you talk to them beforehand? Talking to people who work in the company beforehand. So as much of kind of, detective work that you can do on the company.
Yeah, I guess it's really important to know what kind of role you're interviewing for, before stepping into the interview. And really, there are a lot of common questions that everyone, like almost everyone, asks. Like, for instance, say, what is the perfect answer to something like, "Tell me a little about yourself." I mean, you are obviously giving your resume. Everything is there in your CV. So, how to make it sound different from what is already there on your resume?
Yeah, so I mean, most interviews follow a set process, right? And there are very rarely any surprises in an interview, right? Of course, if you say you're applying for a job like Google, which of course kind of makes you go through hoops and all of that. I mean, those kind of storied companies have their own processes, but generally you just have kind of it's a set thing. Tell me a little bit about yourself. It's kind of as an easy opener. It gives you a chance to settle down. It gives the interviewer a chance to settle down. It's an opportunity for the interviewer to get to know you as well a little bit, and get to know your style. Some people are shy, some people are not. It also allows,
Yeah.
Calibrate themselves as well, right? Remember, the interviewer is meeting you for the first time, and you are also meeting the interviewer for the first time as well. So both of you need to get comfortable. So tell me a little bit about yourself is a great opener, and you should really practice it out, right? Don't go into an interview thinking, oh, I'll just say what I have. You should really kind of have it practiced out. You might have done different jobs in the past. You might have switched industries in the past. But you should be able to relate everything you've learned from that into the current role that you're applying for. I'll give you my example, right?
Okay.
My 20s, I was doing different things. I was working for charities like Pratham. I was kind of doing fundraisers for them. I was investing in companies. I was investing in Indian art. So I was doing a whole bunch of other things, right? So when I have to say, tell me a bit about yourself, I'll take examples from each of the different things that I was doing and then relating it to what I am doing right now. So fundraising for charities taught me how to fundraise from investors for my company, right?
Yeah.
Event management,
Wow.
how to handle a kind of a large team of people to drive them towards one process, right? Investing in Indian art taught me, how to seek value in different things and how to find value where other people don't find value, right? So I would put all of those strands together and then apply that to tell me about yourself. And it's also a really good chance to make yourself feel human.
Yeah.
Of two, I am a certain type of person, so your personality should come out. And that is what actually makes it easy and more comfortable for you and also for the interviewer as well.
I think, PG, those are great tips, especially now when you are doing most of the interviews on screen. You are not, going to interviews in person. I think all of this really helps when you are, talking to somebody across the screen. How important, PG, so now coming to virtual interviews, how important, PG, it is to pay attention to your background, to your environment, to technology before you, start the interview.
A whole new world out there right now, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I promise you that I'm wearing pajamas underneath my top, and I can bet you are as well, right? So it does not really matter. So you have to. So I mean, you have to look at your screen. You have to make sure that your background is clean. It's not distracting. Tell everyone in your house that you are at an important interview. Lighting matters.
Yeah.
Positioning it properly. Do a dry run, right? And
Yeah.
sure that like for example, whenever I have to go on to an interview for Google on Microsoft, right? Forever
Hmm.
never get on. Now I know that is a problem. So I make sure that I
Yeah.
understand how you can get in there. You get in there a little bit early, right? So just that prep is important, and to do a dry run technologies and make sure your phone or your laptop is charged. All of
Of
those
course.
things you have to make sure that you are completely comfortable and you're not scrambling at the last moment trying to get into the interview and making the
Right. So, PG, of course,
sorry,
we are.
just one your appearance, right? So
Yes. Yes.
all of us are doing a lot of it's very easy these days, right? You don't really have to get ready every single day, but for the interview you
Yeah.
take that effort, right? Grooming, making sure that you're looking presentable, making sure that the lighting is good, all of those things you have to make sure that that is done.
Yeah, that's what I was coming to. That how should you dress up for your virtual interview? I know you have to, like, your top should be like informals or semi-casuals, because we really can't actually slack off on our appearance, even if it is a virtual interview.
On the job that you're applying for, right? If it's a kind of a job,
Yeah.
a company, you're a lot more casual. If you're applying for a bank role, if you're applying for a consulting job, of course, then you will be in kind of a blazer or a suit. For me, my go-to is just like a dark top, right? It's just easy.
Yeah.
And that kind of just does it. And it kind of checks all the boxes. Nothing too busy, nothing too dangly, just kind of you're well-groomed, presentable. And
Okay.
what about, how you're going to look on the screen?
Right. PJ, moving on to some really, I think I would say some commonly asked questions. Can you tell us if there is a way to transform your, like a lot of hiring managers ask this question, what is your weakness? They really come on to your weakness. So what is that right way to answer? Can you transform your weakness into a strength in disguise? And somehow,
your weak, tell me about your week. Again, that's again a very common question that again it's
yeah.
a easy question for the interviewer to ask, because you can just sit back and just watch the person just kind of go to town. But most 99.9% of the time people will say, oh, I work so hard and that's my weakness, and that just sounds like a bit daft to the person who's hearing it, right? Like you're just trying to make yourself sound good by calling something that we like, and I'm very ambitious, like people think I'm very pushy, that's my weakness. So
that's like the first thing to say.
Don't do that, right? This is a chance to be honest about what all of us have weaknesses. Like, for example, I find it very difficult to delegate, as you all know. My weakness, right? And I know that about myself. If I were to answer the question, I would answer it honestly, and not that just makes me sound like I'm praising myself on the back, kind of in a parallel fashion, right? Don't do that. Use that time to be honest. State what you think it is, give an example about it, but then also explain how you kind of manage it, right? For example, micromanagement is a weakness of mine, and I don't let people, I'm not comfortable giving away authority. That's a problem. So then I have different ways that I manage it. I'm aware of it and I manage it. How I manage it, you would explain, right? So
right.
Question is a chance to tell the interviewer more about yourself. Don't miss out on kind of these chances, right? And don't just kind of brush it off by just saying, oh, I find it very difficult to switch off after work. That's my weakness. Like, come on. So and tell us how you manage it.
Okay, PJ, looks like we have a question from a viewer. Drishti is asking, should we be extremely formal or a bit casual when we are giving an interview?
Depends again on the person that you're interviewing to. Extremely casual is never an option, right? Someone is talking to you because they want to pay you to do work. And no matter, it might be a very, very casual industry, but they are still expecting a level of professionalism from you. And that should show up when you're talking, right? So using colloquial terms. I mean, I've had people in interviews, but dear, I'm like, you just get.
I think dear in everyday language is also a complete no.
I don't know if I've ever heard kind of but no matter, it might be very casual, especially if you're meeting in person. It might be seen like it's just a fun place to work with. But remember, it's a job interview. You have to be professional.
Okay, we have another question from Priyanka. She's asking, is there a correct way to answer, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I think that's the most common question that you get in almost every interview. So, yeah.
And look, when you're applying for you get these questions in different situations, right? Like I'm being interviewed for a magazine or something, right? Where do you see yourself, or what's the future, or whatever. So remember the context of what you're being asked. I'm interviewing you for a particular role. That role is going to grow into, if you were to join, then you'd kind of move on and you'd grow in that role as well. So I would tailor that answer to the role that I'm in. For example, say you're interviewing for the role of a social media manager, right? And if I were to ask myself in 5 years, in 5 years, I see myself as a doctor. There's no way to hire you for that role, right? So remember you're being interviewed for, and imagine in 5 years' time, where would that role be? And if that is where you see yourself, then of course you're applying for the right job. And that is basically what you should say. Don't give a complete, because then the interviewer knows that you're not really here for the long run.
Okay, PJ, I would also like to ask here that what are the things, like since you spoke about using colloquial language and colloquial terms, what are the phrases, things that you should avoid saying in an interview? Like, you should completely, those are red flags that you
So
aren't doing well in your interview.
a common question that I like to ask is, you must have seen our social media handle, and what do you think we can do better? So that's a way of me asking that how would you improve on what we are doing, and because we'd like to learn and we'd like to get better. I mean, some of the really good interviews I've had, I've actually come back with ideas that the person gave me, and we've actually implemented them in the company. So when you're getting a question like that, one of the biggest things that you get is, I think you guys should be doing this, right? Or you guys should be doing that. But so talking about the company that you're interviewing for in the third person or the second person it just feels like you're distancing yourself away from the interviewer. I would say, look, I think we should be doing this. I think we are doing this really well, but here's a space where we could do better. So co-opting yourself within the company, interviewing for the role as if you already have the role, right? I mean, my brain switches off when someone in an interview tells me, oh, you should be doing this, or talking about PopExo in the second or the third person. That's a completely no-no for me, right? So act as if you are already in the company. You are talking to your colleague in the company and giving suggestions as to how they could do better. That's a much, much better way of doing it. And it makes the other person feel very comfortable as well, right?
Right.
As if you are already there.
Right.
Thinking about something.
And PG, another question that you often get asked is, I don't know what is the right way to answer why do you want to leave your current company? Because, there are times when you are just looking for a transition for better money or for a better role, but you are actually happy with your current company. So how do you, answer something like that when you yourself don't know the answer?
Oh, well, I think you should first find out the answer, right? Before you decide to move on. And again, be honest, it's a small world and reference checks do happen. So just making up a bad idea, don't do that. Just be honest, right? I'm looking for a change in environment because I think I've kind of learned what I had to learn. I've been with my company for 5 years and I've really enjoyed what I've done. I've learned so much. It's something. So showing that you're leaving your previous role on good terms, showing that you learned as well, and you're grateful for kind of the job that you had there, and then you're moving on, is something that you have to seem like a very measured person. You're not doing this on knee jerk, and don't ever badmouth your previous company. It just
Of course.
all kinds of alarm bells around you, right? If you're going to be sitting in front of me badmouthing your boss, I'm going to be thinking, if I were to hire this person and she were to move on, her next interview would be her badmouthing me. Reflection who you are as a person. And oftentimes, I mean, the interview just stops there, right? The moment a person starts doing that, my brain switches off and I'm like, okay, this is not the right culture fit for us, and we don't want this in a company, right? So don't badmouth.
Yeah.
And what has happened? You might be really upset. There might be a really good reason, but this is not the time washing your dirty laundry in a job interview.
We are getting a lot of questions, PG, on
Okay, so I think we have questions here as to why should we hire?
We have.
Yeah, Ekta?
Yes, PG, I'm back.
Okay, so
yeah. I got a call in between, yeah. So we are getting a lot of questions on salary expectations and why should we hire you? Yeah, I think Gayatri is asking how to answer this question.
So look, why should we hire you is a great chance to really kind of, make yourself, showcase yourself really, really well, right? Because that is kind of the point where we're looking for the hard sell, we're looking for the push. So you should have an understanding of what the job you're interviewing for, what is the kind of person who do well in the job, and explain to me how you are the right fit for that job, right? Also show why you are right for the company as well, what excites you about the company, why do you want to kind of make this transition, what do you think you'll learn in the job, what do you think you'll add to the company. So this is when you're making that push for yourself, right? And please practice this question well, right? Because it's definitely going to come at the end of the interview, why should we hire you, right? And flubbing this is a very easy thing to do. Most people just, literally kind of, they lose the plot. It's been a long interview. You've been speaking for whatever, an hour or so. By the time this cost energy. So again, this is a question that you should practice. You should explain why you're right for the role, why you're right for the company, what excites you about the company, what excites you about the role, and what you're hoping to learn and gain from the role. Don't say, oh, hire me because, I'm going to make more money. No, that's going to be a stupid answer to give, right? Of course,
Yeah.
you are looking to cut. We know that. That's fine. But that is not what I'm expecting to hear at that point.
Right. So before we go on to discussing the salary, PG, I would like to ask about about the body language. What kind of body language should you maintain when you are in an interview? Because I feel that an interviewer really pays attention to your body language, and they are looking at you when you are talking. So
So there are a lot of non-verbal cues that all of us give out when we're talking, right?
yeah.
If you're going kind of back, you're going to be kind of your hands across, you're looking down. It's just a very closed, and you might be nervous. And it's like job interviews are stressful and they're nervous, right?
Yeah.
Probably all I can say is I'm really stressed about this, and that probably helps break the ice a little bit more. But you have to really kind of seem really relaxed, casual, excited, happy to be there, right? So a very open body language is what the interviewer is looking for. And any form of, looking down, looking sideways when you're answering, all of those are signs that you're actually trying to make up an answer. There's a lot of psychology that kind of goes into that. I'm sure if you Google how to tell if someone is lying,
Yeah.
you get every interviewer's read them. So we all are looking out for them anyway. Non-verbal cues are a big, having a nice, open, expansive, happy, excited kind of attitude is basically what I would strongly suggest.
So I guess it's a good idea to Google some of these psychological tricks before you.
To me, there's so many shows out there just talk about this idea of this whole Harry and Meghan interview that happened on YouTube. You'll find all kind of reading of she was looking here, so that meant there. She was looking there. He was doing this. Just have this kind of very nice, pleasant attitude to when you're coming in. It'll show in your body language as well.
Right. So BJ, we are also getting like a lot of questions on salary. What is the ideal way to negotiate between your salary expectations and what you are getting offered?
See, look, there are opportunities to discuss and negotiate salary, and there are opportunities that is not the right place to do it, right? So most ask you, what are your salary expectations, right? And what I usually would what I see happening is, and which actually works is, look, I'm currently on this. I'm looking at an X% raise, which is kind of commensurate for these reasons, and leave it at that. This is not the time when you're getting into a negotiation with your with the person who's interviewing you, right? You're not even sure whether you're getting in right now. So trying to negotiate a job interview is a little bit presumptive, right? After the job interview, if you pass that, then of course HR will call you, and then that is the time you can actually have a proper kind of negotiation with HR, right? I don't think that the job interview is the right place to start. If you want to put out your expectations, please do. But this is not the time to kind of again go for it. So I this is my line. If I don't get this, I'm not going to whatever. You don't have the job yet.
Yeah, I think you should only put it across when you are getting when you are being asked that question.
To you, that is when you can go back and politely have a discussion.
Yeah. PG, also, like, apart from salary, are there any other questions that you should ask the interviewer, and what is the right time to ask those questions? Like, what if you have...
Look, IITs definitely do, but most interviewers ask, is there something you want to ask me? Do you have any questions?
Yeah.
Please have questions ready, Sometimes people, all my questions have been answered in the interview. I mean, you can say that, then that's fine, but I'd like to see more engaged, who's thought about something. It could be even something, I've seen this trend in the industry, and what do you think about it? I was always wondered, you guys did this at that time. What went into that decision, right? You can ask any amount of questions that you can actually prepare a few of those out depending on how the interview is going. Have them ready, or ask if you know the interviewer, you went to this college and then you went this. So I was just wondering, what made you do that? So it's just a way of you showing you're engaged, you're prepared, you care about the company, care about the person who's interviewing you. So don't let that question go waste, right? Just don't say, all my questions have been answered. And then I'm like,
it actually shows that you're interested.
Interview.
Right. So, PG, also, what about the work culture? What if you want to know something about the company's work culture? How should you, should you be direct in asking about the company's work culture, or should you just have figure your way around that question?
look, culture fit is very, very important, right? And I probably would say that's important things of what you're looking at when you're talking to someone, right? Because I imagine, okay, if I'm going to be stuck with this person working late in the evening for a project, or if you're traveling together, I mean, am I going to kind of find it comfortable to kind of connect with this person, right? Or is my team going to be able to connect with this person, right? So it's important to actually get the culture kind of discussion. It should anyway, the culture of the company will come across in how the interview is conducted anyway. So you'll be able to get some of that. But if you have some specific questions, please ask them, right? Are you kind of a very open kind of a company? Is there a lot of hierarchy in the company? How does it work? How does decision making work? Who would I be reporting to? So all of those are fair questions to ask, and you should ask them because it shows that you're actually thinking about the job in a very strategic and a systematic fashion.
Right. And most of the hiring managers, they actually, they look for people who are incredibly passionate and, about the company, about whatever they're interviewing for. So, PG, what if during an interview, you are done with the interview, your hiring manager offers you a different role instead of what you were interviewing for? Should you be accepting that kind of a thing, or should you just stick to, what you originally went for?
See, look, again, this is a tricky question, right? And it usually should not. Sometimes, of course, you meet a person and you have multiple open roles and you think this person might be a right for that role. I've done it in the past where I've offered a completely different kind of a role to a person who I was kind of interviewing for XYZ role, right? It happens. But please be measured when you're answering. Then don't, oh yeah, of course, I'm happy to do it. It just shows you haven't thought about it. Take that moment and just to say, okay, this looks interesting, and try. You can always talk yourself through it. Okay, so I came in for kind of a social media manager, but you think I might be right for a content manager? While it's not something that I was kind of actually thinking about right now, but it sounds interesting, and you can actually explain. So again, show some measure in your thinking and show that you're able to kind of think strategically through. It's a big decision, right? You came in for X role, you're getting Y role. Don't jump at it, right? Because if you jump at it, it shows that you life, right? And which you really should not be doing.
Okay, I would like to take a question over here from one of the viewers. Somebody asked that what should you do if you don't know how to answer a particular question? I also actually had this question in my list. How should you, what should you do? Sometimes you really get nervous because you don't know how to answer a particular question.
Firstly, breathe. You'd be surprised how often people forget to breathe in an interview, right? Just take that time. If you have some water ahead of you, take a sip of water, and say, oh, okay, that's an interesting question. Let me just think about it. Just give me a moment. You can take time, and remember, for all jobs, when I'm working with someone, I respect and appreciate people who are not trigger happy. For example, say you don't know the answer, and all of us kind of have been in situations where you don't know the answer. Saying that, oh, let me just think about it. I can get back to you, and let me just kind of do a little bit more work on it. You can, of course, politely kind of pass the question on, but just remember to just take a deep breath, take a sip of water, and say, okay, that's an interesting question. Rephrase the question. Okay, so you're asking me if I would X, Y, and Z. While I don't really know the right answer, but if I had to kind of hazard a guess, this is probably what I would say. And that's fine. It is not a test. This is not a school exam where you have to get all the questions right. Of course, if you're going in for a technical interview, but most interviews are just a way of the interviewer getting to know you. We're trying to read your resume. We're going to ask you questions against your resume. Please don't lie on resumes, right? Because that will come across in the interview. We want to make sure that what you're saying is actually correct, and it's coming across when you're talking to you as well. So it's a conversation again, like what we said for appraisals and reviews. This is a conversation that you're having, and you should have fun while having it because that increases the chances of you getting the job.
Right. And PG, what about the red flags that you should look out for during an interview, which tells you that your interview is not going well and your the hiring manager is not really happy with your answers?
Again, body language. All of us instinctively know.
PG, I lost you there, I think.
Sorry, I'm saying that it's very obvious when something like that is happening, and all of us are very good at reading non-verbal cues from the other person. If the other person is really disengaged, he or she is kind of doodling on the pad, you're giving an answer, they're not really engaging with your answer, they are either not interested or they made up their mind, and you can probably kind of start to listen. I think you know what's happening there, and you of course get through the interview, but then you know what is happening there, right? If you think that you really If you're really nervous, please just say that, "Listen, I know I was very nervous through this interview, but I'm actually not like that. So please take the chance to explain what you think might be kind of going wrong as well. But please read the other person. Sometimes the person's kind of done, right? And no matter what you do, it's not going to change their mind at that point. Of course, you try and make efforts to do it, but then you kind of, every interview doesn't have to kind of result in a positive answer as well, right? That's fine.
Yeah, right.
As professional and as calm as possible, try and understand what the other person's thinking or doing. If an answer of yours is switching that other person off, you might want to come back to that answer and do it differently, right? Just
Right.
engage and try and engage with the other person. Think of it like talking to someone. It's a good conversation that you're having, and just try and keep that other person's attention as much as possible.
Right. And we have a question here from Rishabh. He's asking how to address the gap in your CV. Like, what if how do you give an answer to the gap if you have a gap in your CV, like a 5 years gap or something?
So look, life happens, right? And most of us have a good reason why there's a gap.
Yeah.
You have to be, again, honest about it and just explain why it is there. Explain what you time, and that's fine. A gap is a gap, and most companies, and if the company or the interviewer is really hell-bent on not having the gap, maybe it's not the right place for you, right? So again,
Right.
it's there, and acknowledge the gap, right? And don't kind of make up things in a resume to fill a gap, because again, that shows, right? If I were to see a resume and this person is shifting jobs every 6 months, there's no interview,
Yeah.
right? If I see a gap, I can, okay, fine. It's an interesting profile. Let me see why there's a gap. So you can explain it away. And of course, most of us have genuine reasons for having a gap in the CV, right? Which is fine.
So, PJ, you gave us like a very good insight into how to answer some most commonly asked questions. But I would like to ask, what should you do after the interview? When the interview is done, how often should you follow up with the company or the HR after your interview is done and you haven't heard in a long time or something?
See, look, if the company hasn't come back to you, it's a gap in their process, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes, you just kind of things just fall through the crack, and it happens, and which is fine, and it happens, right? So I think right after the interview, you basically send a polite note to whoever set it up saying, hey, thank you so much. I had a good time. And send a nice, sweet kind of a message after that. I really enjoyed this. I really enjoyed take the person's name. We kind of had whatever. So just kind of give a little kind of enthusiastic response to the interview if you like the interview, right? And just say, please do let me know what the next steps are. And they should come back. If they don't come back, I would probably follow up in the next couple of days and say, hey, please do let me know if you fill the role. That's great, and I would just love to know. So just kind of leave it at that, and anything more than that, then you're pushing it, right? So please don't go stalking the person who interviewed you. All of that, that's not HR to deal with it. If the company's processes aren't that strong on this, sometimes slip-ups happen, and it happens to all of us, right? And that's fine. Make sure you've done your first follow-up, second follow-up, and then you should probably kind of, if you really wanted the job, you could talk to someone, in the company, hey, why don't you just go and push HR for me? You could probably do that. I'm sure it probably works. So it puts you on top of mind for the HR. But beyond that, not really, no.
Right. PG, we are still getting a lot of questions on salary. So what I would like to ask here is that people are asking how to negotiate salary. So what I would like to ask here is that when you get asked that question, a lot of hiring managers say that, we really like you, but we still cannot pay you this much, whatever you're asking for. So how to make sure that, they kind of give you what you deserve?
See, look, most companies have budget set for a role, right? If you're out of budget, you are out of budget, right? Then it depends on whether you really want that job and you're willing to kind of sacrifice something in there. And then you let them know there is some room for movement. Not very much, but there is room for movement. If there's not, then of course, why should you get paid less than what you think you're owed, right? So, if they say that, we love you, you're really good, but I'm going to offer you a tenth of what you expect, of course you're going to walk. You're a smart person. Why would you go and take that? Again, that's a decision for you. I wouldn't close any doors. I would just give an open-ended answer. Look, it's interesting. Let me think about it. I'll come back to you. So that's again a professional. Oh my God, how dare you offer me like that? And I was saying this, and now you're giving me that. That's not at that point the interview is over. Why would you kind of get into an argument with the person who's interviewing you?
Right. I think we have answered most of the questions. questions. I don't know why I'm getting a lot of requests to join the live with you. At a time, I had around 8 requests to join
Pressure.
the live. I don't know.
That's just totally
Yeah,
right. Your first interview, when your first job right out of college, it's always hard, right? And I've done so many of those, and it's fine. And the interviewer also knows that, look, she hasn't had a job before this. It's her first job interview, and we will make allowances for that, right? But if it's your first job interview, it's the perfect time to start practicing your professionalism, right? And showing that, look, I did this in college, or I did that in college, and kind of really showing that you're a together person is important, right? And also think about your career path, right? You should really know, why am I applying for this particular job, right? I don't expect you to know where you'll be 5 years because you've never had a job yet, right? But just being very specific and clear as to why is this exciting, what do you want to learn from the job. Be just be open about that, right? And I really want to learn. It's my first kind of job. I never had a job before. I'm really excited. Whatever it is, just show your enthusiasm, but be really professional about it. A lot of kids that you interview are straight up. They forget that they're moving on from kind of a college, very casual space, and they're coming into a little bit more structured work environment. Just make that flip in your mind. Practice interview. Get someone to interview first. Maybe even get someone who maybe works with their parents, or an older sister or brother who's already working somewhere. Just do a couple of practice runs. Don't come into your interview kind of completely cold.
right. PG, we have a question from Riddhi. Very interesting question. She's asking, what does Popexo look for in a candidate when applying for content writing?
For which content writing?
Yes.
So look, by the time you get to the, and I don't remember now, do we give the test before or after the job interview? After, right?
After the interview, yes.
So basically, look, by the time if you've come to an interview stage, we've already tested you out on your writing and you're happy with the way you write, right? So now is the time when you're looking at people, and I'm sure, I mean, you guys have done a lot more of these interviews recently, but you're looking at people who have ideas, people who are team players, people who read. I mean, for me, one of the most important things for a writer is, does she read herself? So just showing that you're engaged with the written work, you care about it, you know a lot about social media. All content producers are social media experts now. Making sure that your own social media profiles are correctly aligned. So that's the other thing, right? Companies will do a search on you, no matter what role you're applying for.
Right.
Especially if it's for a content role, your Instagram will be checked out. Just make sure that Instagram profile is a good, clean profile, right? It's not full of like horrific typos and kind of internet speak out there. Because I mean, if I were looking at your profile for a content writer and had all that, it would be a pass from me, right? And your LinkedIn profile as well. Just make sure that your LinkedIn and your Instagram profiles are very, very good and clean, and they're really kind of reflecting the professional person you are, right? No longer is Instagram a very private thing, because all of us check it out, right? If I'm going to hire someone for a social media or a content role, their Instagram tells me how they promote themselves. If they promote themselves well, they'll be able to promote my company well. And you guys hear that from me all the time, right? I still go of my team as well, and I tell them, you guys did a good job there on your personal. I need to see that on the company Instagram account as well. So just make sure social profiles are good. If you're on Twitter, you're not really kind of going on and bashing everyone right, left, and center and all of that, because it just shows that the kind of the person you are, probably it won't fit with Popexo.
Right. PG, on that note, I would also like to ask, while you said that company checks out your profile, I would like to ask a question over here about references that you give. So some companies are really specific about the kind of references they want, but some aren't. So in that case, what kind of references should you give? Should you only give references for people who've been good friends with you, or should you give a reference with about your... Okay, again, we got a question on salary. So what kind of references should you give, to the company? Because if they check out your profile thoroughly, then of course they're going to check out the references as well.
Most companies will tell you, we need a reference from your reporting manager, whatever it is that they want. Most companies are specific about the reference that you should give. And you should typically just basically follow that, right? You can't just make up your own reference. And whether it's good, does not matter. The companies are going to want that. And it depends on the person giving the reference, but then that is what it is. So that's why never, ever, 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 ever leave a job on a bad note. No matter what type of experience, how upset you are, please don't fight with your company when leaving, because it just ensures that your reference is going to be bad. Right? For the simple reason that, she was very kind of antagonistic when leaving the company. And that will get to it. So just be really good and professional when you're moving on from A company to B company, because it'll just show it. You don't want that carrying that, throughout your career. And
Right.
that I made about not bad mouthing your previous company as well. Like, why do that, right? You're a professional, not personal. You moved on, which is fine, right? You don't have to go and kind of start dissing everyone you worked with previously. Yeah, I mean, they tell you the kind of reference that they want, and that's the reference that they're going to get. You can't really avoid reference. You can just make sure that it's a good reference by staying on good terms with the people that you are working with.
Right. So, PG, you have answered most of my questions, and we have also answered a lot of questions from the viewers. So, before we end this interview, PG, would you like to add something? I mean, you gave us some really great tips, and I really enjoyed doing this session because I got some really great tips. So, would you like to add something before we end this with you?
Yeah. So, I mean, the interview is an opportunity for you as much as the company to see if it's the right fit, right? So it's not a one-way street. It's not like, it's not a school test where you have to give the right answer and then you get the mark. It's not that. It's, again, I keep repeating it's a conversation, because even while the interviewer is kind of assessing you, you are also assessing the culture of the company. How is it? So remember, just all of those are important things. If you leave the interview feeling really kind of scared and not happy and anxious and all of that, or some of it is normal. But if you're really kind of reacting negatively, strongly to the interview, just ask yourself why. It might be a thing that you're not going to be comfortable in this environment, even if you were to get the job, right? So just kind of look out for all of these signals that you get throughout the whole process. How are you invited to the interview? How did the person treat you? Was he or she friendly or not? Was he or she professional or not? Was he or she prepared for the interview or not? So that's, again, you are also seeing how does the company deal with people. And that if you're not feeling good or comfortable about the interview, you might want to keep kind of looking on, right? You need to find a place where you will be happy and comfortable with. And remember, the interview, doing your best face is the interview, right? You're going to be a different person to join to some degree. And it's also the company showing its best face to you. If that is not a good fit, then I don't think you're going to be happy in the job. So treat it,
true, very true.
Discuss and to kind of see whether you'll be happy and comfortable there. Talk to a lot of people as you can in the company, right? LinkedIn is, you've done your homework, right? But also remember that the kind of things you're going to hear, some of it might be biased, right? So while you do your interview, all of those things, there might be some bias of what you're hearing. Watch out for that, right? And if there are certain questions that crop up a lot, please make sure you ask the interviewer that. Like, for example, for PopExo, say someone might come to me and say that we hear that PopExo is a very, I'm trying to think of a good phrase that they might say. It's a very fast-paced company, right? Which basically means we work really hard, which is true, right? So if that is something that you found that out in your interviews, and that's something that's worrying you and you're looking for a slightly more easier pace, either you address the question or you might know that the company is not a right fit for you. So your homework, you're looking for a good personality fit as well. And please ask, is there anything else that you'd like to ask me or whatever, right? Just keep an open conversation going with the interviewer as much as is possible.
Right. So, Vijay, I hope that you also enjoyed doing this session, and I think it's time to end the session. Thank you so much for taking out the time to do this. It was lovely chatting with you.
Absolutely. And guys, if you're looking to work for PopExo, I'm just kind of putting it, reaching out to HR is basically the best way to get it. And I think it's jobs@popexo.com or HR@popexo.com. And similarly, it is for MyGlam, it is careers@myglam.com.
Yeah, careers@myglam.
Right there. You can find out on LinkedIn who are the HR. Ravi is our HR head. You have Megha. You can find out the people in the HR team. Please reach out to them on LinkedIn, and that's a great way to do it. LinkedIn is fantastic, as you all know. Please kind of, there are lots of all our post open roles are there out on LinkedIn. That's a great way to go and see what's out there. So yeah, looking forward to seeing some of you at joining us at PopExo MyGlam sometime soon. And thanks, Nikta, for having me. I really enjoyed this.
Thank you, PG. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.